Our story tonight: Whispers of Whitechapel. Original untold story by William A. L. and read by Maxwell A. I. The gas lamps flickered, casting elongated shadows on the cobbled streets of Whitechapel. It was a foggy autumn night in 1888, and the air was thick with an eerie silence broken only by the distant sounds of horse-drawn carriages and the occasional footsteps of those brave enough to venture out after dark. The notorious district of London, known for its poverty and crime, harboured a secret that would send shivers down the spines of its residents. In the heart of Whitechapel, an imposing figure emerged from the mist, cloaked in darkness and fueled by a sinister desire. Jack the Ripper, as the newspapers had dubbed him, prowled the alleys with a macabre purpose. His ghastly deeds had sent shockwaves through the city, leaving a trail of mutilated bodies in his wake. Detective Frederick Aberline, a seasoned investigator with a haunted look in his eyes, sifted through the reports and examined the crime scenes. The Ripper's victims were women of the night, their lives extinguished in a brutal and methodical fashion. The press fed on the terror, and the people of Whitechapel lived in perpetual fear, their nerves on edge with every passing shadow. As the city slept, the Ripper's presence grew bolder. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, each victim added another layer of dread to the unfolding nightmare. The narrow lanes and hidden corners of Whitechapel became a sinister stage for the Ripper's grotesque performance. One fog-choked evening, as the gaslight struggled to pierce the darkness, a lone figure named Sarah found herself navigating the labyrinthine streets. Sarah, a young woman of modest means, had narrowly escaped the Ripper's clutches before. Her nerves were frayed, and she quickened her pace, hoping to reach the safety of her lodgings. Unbeknownst to Sarah, the Ripper stalked her every move, his malevolent gaze fixated on his prey. The fog, thick as a funeral shroud, cloaked his approach. The gas lamps sputtered in protest as the Ripper closed the distance, his footsteps masked by the muffled whispers of the night. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, a desperate rhythm echoing the dread that gripped her soul. She turned a corner, and there he was, an indistinct silhouette emerging from the shadows. Panic set in, but before she could scream, a gloved hand clamped over her mouth, muffling her cries. In the dim light, Sarah glimpsed the Ripper's face, obscured by the brim of a top hat and the collar of a dark overcoat. His eyes, cold and calculating, bore into her with a malevolence that transcended the mortal realm. The Ripper's blade glinted in the pale glow, poised to carry out his grisly work. But just as the Ripper prepared to strike, a distant shout echoed through the mist. Startled, he released his grip on Sarah and melted back into the shadows. The shout drew closer, and Sarah stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror. The Ripper vanished, leaving only the chilling memory of his presence. Detective Aberline, alerted by the commotion, arrived at the scene with his fellow officers. The fog clung to the cobblestones, concealing the Ripper's escape. Sarah, trembling and pale, recounted the harrowing encounter, her words a testament to the city's collective nightmare. The manhunt intensified, with Aberline tirelessly pursuing every lead. The newspapers churned out sensationalized tales, each more gruesome than the last. The city teetered on the brink of hysteria, its denizens haunted by the specter of Jack the Ripper. One fateful night, as the moon cast an otherworldly glow over Whitechapel, Aberline received an anonymous letter. Its contents were chilling, a cryptic taunt from the Ripper himself. The detective's brow furrowed as he studied the words, a mixture of fear and determination etched on his face. The letter hinted at the Ripper's next move, a macabre promise that sent shivers down Aberline's spine. The detective assembled a small, dedicated team to stake out the area described in the letter, hoping to catch the elusive killer in the act. As the night wore on, the tension in the air became palpable. The streets lay in an unnatural stillness, as if the city itself held its breath. Aberline and his team, concealed in the shadows, strained their senses for any sign of the Ripper's approach. Suddenly, a noise pierced the silence, a soft, haunting melody carried by the wind. Abeline's eyes widened in recognition. The tune was "The Streets of Laredo," a song the Ripper had whistled at previous crime scenes. The melody grew louder, resonating through the narrow alleys like a dirge. A figure emerged from the mist, draped in the same dark overcoat and top hat. The Ripper strolled with a deliberate pace, his eyes fixed on a distant point. Abeline signaled to his team, and they closed in, shadows converging on the embodiment of terror. The Ripper, aware of the encroaching presence, quickened his step. A chase ensued through the labyrinthine streets, the sound of footsteps echoing like a ghastly drumbeat. The fog embraced the pursuit, concealing the predator and his pursuers in an otherworldly dance. Cornered, the Ripper turned to face his adversaries. The gas lamps cast an eerie glow on his face, revealing a twisted smile that sent shudders through the detective's spine. The Ripper raised his blade, the moonlight glinting off its cold steel. In that tense moment, a shot rang out, breaking the silence like thunder. The Ripper staggered, a look of disbelief on his face. Another shot followed, and the infamous killer crumpled to the ground, his reign of terror extinguished by the hands of justice. As the fog lifted, Whitechapel emerged from the grip of fear that had held it captive. The Ripper's identity remained a mystery, buried in the shadows of the fog-choked streets. Detective Abeline, haunted by the horrors he had witnessed, faded into obscurity, his weary eyes reflecting the toll of the pursuit. The whispers of Whitechapel persisted, lingering in the alleys and hidden corners like a ghostly echo. The Ripper's legacy lived on, a dark chapter in the annals of London's history, forever etched in the collective memory of a city that had faced the embodiment of its deepest fears. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Please stay tuned for new episodes of White Star Horror Stories, presented Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m.